Paddy. I know you spoke about it earlier in the week, sort of the struggle between him wanting to play, you guys probably taking the conservative route. How was that conversation and how did Paddy take the news?
Well, because it's been an ongoing conversation and he was always aware of this possibility, and he has so much trust in our medical staff that he was always going to leave the final decision to them. But the way we tend to operate is that the player has a lot of control over not just their program but their whole career. And with Paddy's experience, he was always going to have some sway there, but not so much that he would go against what the medical staff thought was prudent. And then I sort of come in at the back end of that conversation, and really the decision was made before I had too much influence, and I feel comfortable with it as well. We are not in the position where we're going to be panicked into thinking about where we are in the season when it comes to individuals coming back from injury, especially. I shouldn't even rank them, but everyone knows how important he is to us. But there's a group of them. Mitch Duncan's in that category as well. Max Holmes is in that category. And we'll get them back soon. So maybe we'd look back and say we could have got them back a week or two earlier, but if we get them back and they play well in the back half of the year, that's going to give us every chance, and that's what we're focused on.
Is that a luxury of being able to take that conservative route because you know that you can work your way back from a position like you're in now because you've done it before, historically you made the runs on the ball?
I agree with the latter part. We know we can do it. We're confident of that. It's not a guarantee and we're not overconfident, but we believe in what's possible with this group. But we're trying not to let that influence these sort of decisions. We're trying to approach it the same way we would if we were 11-0 or whatever the number might be. And we've done it in previous years as well. It's tended to be our policy. We're sort of aggressive trying to get them back, but then tend to be a bit conservative towards the end. And that's held us in good stead, and we've got confidence in our program. So, but I think maybe the only thing it points to is that, we're not thinking that our whole season depends on this game coming up. We're ready for it. We're going to really attack this game. And I feel really good about the preparation we've had and the team that we're going to put out on the park. But it's not as if it's the last game we're going to play or the most important.
There will be if you do drop this one though, there's a fair bit riding on the fact that there's going to be a 3-game break sort of between where you sit and that top 4 groups. And, we are going into the back half of the season. Is it a must-win clash from where your top 4 hopes lie?
Why do you think of it that way?
Just because it's hard to make up 3 games in the last 12, essentially. The Bulldogs are sitting 5th and there'll be another game between.
Yeah, maybe you and others might sort of think more about the permutations of the ladder and try to extrapolate out to get to a position that's 12 or 13 weeks away from now. We tend not to. If you wanted me to play that game a little bit and try to project forward to where we might be, I'd rather have won a couple in a row and need to win the next few in a row and be really on a roll. That's what we're focused on, trying to get to our best footy. We thought we were approaching it, even without our full personnel, a month or so ago. And a few things haven't gone our way. We haven't played well enough. We've made a few errors, in the last month that we'd like to have back. But that's kind of AFL footy. We'll make errors over the back half of the season. We'll just try to mitigate them and, at least make them educated errors. But as soon as you start playing the game of thinking, if it doesn't work out this week, we're in trouble, I just think that's a mindset of a loser. And that's not us. I think in terms of what we're going to look like at our best and focusing on getting there, and then it's for everyone else to worry about us. So if we lose this week, I get the catastrophising from others, but I won't be buying into it.
Where do you sit with your midfield at the moment, given what the Dogs have put on the park with the names and the talent they've got in there? Are you confident you've got the midfield group that can match with them, or do you have to pick up other areas of your game that can make up for probably the lack of talent head-to-head in that midfield group?
The Bulldogs have had that talent for a while, though, haven't they? I think everyone faces that challenge going into a game against the Bulldogs. You look through the names and it's quite daunting. We've got supreme confidence in our guys. Yeah, we've got a couple of guys, that, or more than a couple probably, that we'd like to have in that group, and we're really looking forward to getting them back. But I wouldn't underestimate what our team can do. And breaking it down into midfield v midfield is a bit of a dangerous way to look at the game, because it's always a collective, and you could reframe the question and say Geelong's forward line looks pretty handy. We're probably going to roll out the grand final forward line from last year. What are you going to do to mitigate that? And that's probably the wrong way for them to look at it as well. So if the question's, is Bontempelli, Macrae, Smith, Liberatore that good players? Tick. And their draft position alone reflects that. We really respect them, but can we beat them? Yeah.
It was just more the question, I guess, coming up against them without Dangerfield, Duncan, Guthrie, and the talent you've got through there. Yeah, do you feel the confidence, given the last 3 or 4 weeks and the midfield's been exposed at times without those guys?
Yeah, I completely, I think your sort of proposition is one that I agree with, that we'd like to have those guys in, and our midfield on paper doesn't look as good without them. But can the guys we're putting out there play well enough to beat one of the best midfields in the comp? I sincerely believe that. And I think also part of your question is, do we need to sort of reshuffle the team a little bit to support those guys? We don't think so.
You alluded to it in your last answer, but is it the forward line? Your forward line is an amazing group there, and their backline is probably their weakness. Is that where you feel you have got that advantage if we are lining up line on line?
Well, with the exception of O'Sheen Mullen, who will play in our backline, it's pretty close to our grand final backline as well, so we're pretty confident in that. Again, I would never sit in a press conference a day before the game and say that an opposition have a obvious weakness in one part of the ground. That's for others to judge. We are really in the mindset of focusing on what we can do, and even the last month or so, we think one of the errors we've made has been just not quite being aggressive enough with the personnel we have. Maybe we've tried to plug a few gaps as opposed to saying, yeah, we'd like to have Dangerfield and Holmes and Duncan, and the list goes on. But the guys we have got are proven AFL players that can get it done. Let's back them in and be aggressive with the group we've got.
Can you just detail what's happened with Cam Guthrie in the last week or two, where he's gone from ramping up his running and looking like he's going to return soon to potentially missing the rest of the home and away season? Yeah,
so for those that don't know, he has had surgery this morning by reports already. That's gone well, but it will be a long rehab. The plan is to have him back in the last couple of games of the home and away season, hopefully, or somewhere around that period. He wasn't getting close to playing. That's why he had a surgical review and a scan that showed that the progress we were hoping for wasn't being made. And it's been a frustrating process for everyone, especially Cam, because it started off with a minor turf toe issue that morphed into an issue with his sesamoid. And even in retrospect, the way it's been explained to me, and everyone always feels disappointed when you don't quite get the outcome you're after, but the way it was explained to me was handled really well. It was just a difficult situation. The conservative route was the right one. Unfortunately, it didn't work, so now we're more on the aggressive path with surgery, but it's a surgery that the surgeon is very confident will fix it once and for all, which again, it sort of sums up our policy a little bit. Really disappointed we won't have him for the next couple of months. But we're not going to put a guy at risk who's important to our future just because we're a little uncomfortable with where we sit on the ladder.
Is there a ballpark sort of return date?
Yeah. Last couple of games of the year, I think it would be a rough guideline, but I would sort of suggest that you take the same approach that I do with these things. When it's longer term, you just sort of cool your jets until he's getting towards the last month of his return to play period, because it's just a vague estimation up until then.
Has Reece Stanley made any progress in the last week since you spoke about sort of the vision concerns or anything?
Yeah, he has, and hopefully you saw a little bit of Reece out there today, looking good. So he has made progress, and we're confident that he'll play soon. I don't know exactly how soon, but again, I've mentioned this a few times with a few of our injuries. We've had guys who haven't been able to play but have been able to train, and Reece is one of those. He's had this little bit of sort of discomfort with his vision, and that would be very disconcerting, but the rest of his body's been able to get a fair bit of work in, and I think when he gets past the play in terms of his vision, he'll be ready to go straight away, such as the work he's done.
Just on the midfield, where's Brandon Harford at, given the holes you do, or the names you got on the sidelines as a premiership player? What's the feedback to him, and where is sort of he lacking at the moment?
Yeah, I'm definitely not in the habit of explaining that publicly. I don't think. I think that's a betrayal of the private conversations that our coaching group have with individual players. I get the question, and I get that me not explaining it in great detail may leave it to you to fill in the gaps. That's a price I'm prepared to pay. We've got a lot of confidence in the player that Brandon can be and will be. Just going through a little patch at the moment where there are parts of his game that he's not happy with. Probably that's the best way to sum up the conversation. He's been proactive about the things that he doesn't feel that he's on top of, but they're things that can be worked on and things that can be overcome. So we're right there with him.
Bringing in Mitch Hardy through the mid-season draft obviously gives him a lifeline to pursue that AFL dream, I guess. But as a more mature age midfielder, is there the potential for short-term sort of success in that program to come in and fill a void in the midfield, which is sort of missing that gap in that age bracket at the moment?
Yeah, I mean, the age bracket's an interesting point, isn't it? Because he is an older player, but he's not old. We don't have many in that 25, 26 age bracket, and we're always open-minded to the possibility with these things. And with good reason, because we have a history of bringing in Mark Blitzarves. Never has a player come onto an AFL list and been further away from AFL footy than Mark Blitzarves, but it turned pretty quickly. Now Mitch is already a well-credentialed SANFL player, and we're open-minded to the possibility of Mitch coming into our team. We wouldn't have drafted him otherwise, but no one's expecting him to fill the void of Cam Guthrie or Paddy Dangerfield. We just want to support him and give him every chance and keep an open mind.
In terms of the limited amount of football that you've seen from him, either in sample games or on the training tracks he was this morning, is there sort of a role or a position that you could see him potentially fulfilling in the future? Is it a midfield role, or do you see him playing elsewhere? No,
it's a midfield role, yeah. Well, and when I say we, specifically our recruiters, who know Mitch a lot better than I do, think that we should have brought him in to play in the midfield and play a very similar role to the one he's been playing in the SANFL.
Just on a review from last week, when you sit back and look at the game as a whole, and I guess in the last month, do you sit back and think, has the side lost 1 or 2% of its ruthless edge, given what you've achieved in last year and given the way the body of work you've got on your belt for the first 11 weeks this year?
I can't remember ever coaching a loss where we've come away and thought that ruthless edge that you're talking about was as good as it could have possibly been, and we just lost the game. So I think that's natural that you would feel that way. I would push back against the suggestion that if it is off at the margin, it's because we're comfortable because of what happened last year. I just don't see any signs of that. If anything, if I had to guess, and this stuff is a guess because it's so vague, I think that maybe we have our feet on the ground a little bit too much. Some of our players are just a little bit too passive in the way they go about it. And maybe they do need to play with the confidence that befits their status within the game. They're not rookies anymore. They're not feeling their way into the game. They're really hardened, high-level, A-grade AFL footballers. So we want them to show that.